I've always been a fan of growth in transition from its early days. I love the fact that it came from inside government, from the Ministry of Life, and I liked the vision that it had to create a space for conversation, and I liked its sense that actually what we're talking about is a system in transition, and where the ability to kind of meet and talk about that and converse around what it means and to think in practical terms about how to achieve that transition is really important. And that's exactly what the conference has done over the llast decade. And I remember a kind of small room in the early days inside the ministry. I don't remember exactly where the first one was, the movement from there to a conference that now attracts hundreds of people to it, from a wide audience and a new audience, a new and younger audience, really keen to take those ideas forwards. That's really the strength of growth in transition. We have to think about enterprise differently. Instead of it being just a kind of profit maximization with a linear throughput of materials, we have to think in terms of a circular economy, but also an economy of service, an economy of care and craft and culture, of the things that improve the quality of our lives, that are not necessarily material in nature, that employ lots of people, really good grounds for creating jobs in the economy, and that deliver a transition in the economic system. But we also, of course, have to think about the nature of our investment. We have to invest in technology, clean, green technology, but we also have to invest in social space, in community, in habitats for other creatures, in the natural world, that idea of investing actually as a commitment to the future. And then we have to also think about what's going to happen in the world of work. And that's a fairly scary place because of all the changes we're told are coming down the road at us from automation and digitalization and robots and AI. This is going to create a scary world, and actually we, I think, do ourselves a disservice by being too obsessed with that and forgetting about the qualities of work that exist within the time that people spend in the economy. And rather than chasing that time endlessly out of the economy, that we think about the mechanism for allowing people to do good jobs, decent jobs, well. Our nurses, instead of hounding them with productivity targets, actually creating a well-resourced health system in which they can do what they do best in caring for other people. Same with our teachers or our artists or our craftsmen. Why are we chasing and making their lives so difficult by chasing work out of the economy, when work is a fundamental aspect of our participation in the economy? Work is a part of the nature of prosperity. So instead of trying to create prosperity without work, maybe we could think about creating prosperity without growth, but with more people employed in decent jobs. Different things. I think there are different kinds of participants here. So some are working in policy, some are working in business, some are academics, some are working in civil society. And actually, of course, the things that you need to do in all of those places are very, very different at one level. So in policymakers, it's about policy making and the everyday reality of that, which can be really hard graft. In business, it's what is my business doing? What's the structure of it? Is it sustainable? Is my business model sustainable? Am I working in line with the constraints of a finite planet? And in ordinary people's lives, the kind of practical actions that they can take away and say, actually, I'd like to do this a little bit differently. I'd like to work a little bit differently. I'd like to invest my money in a different place, or I would like to get out on the streets and protest, or I would like to teach my kids something other than consumerism as the end goal of life. All of those things are really important, but very, very different for different people. And then I think there's a kind of common project, which is about, again, creating and recreating this as a conversation, as a social conversation, a wide social conversation, because that's the grounds for transition, that's the grounds for change, that ability to have that conversation in an open way and to create a dialogue that really matters. So it's really interesting looking at growth in transition, having watched it and been here over those 10 years really, and thinking about the next 10 years, which are obviously critical. And I think one of the things that I would say is that initiative, that government-led initiative to think about growth in transition and to draw together a conversation that has business people, has policymakers, has civil society in there, is something that could usefully be seen as a model in other places. So I have actually for 10 years, almost 10 years, been trying to replicate that model in the UK. And so actually there's a task for me in bringing together the people who have been part of that initiative and saying, can you help me build something somewhere else? In France, in Germany, in Switzerland, it doesn't matter where, somewhere close or somewhere far away in China and Latin America, that idea that social conversation matters and needs to expand. And even though we are hard pressed against all these limits, climate limits, biodiversity destruction, the oceans more full of plastic than they are full of fish within a decade and a half, all of that's scary, but we're not going to find our way out of it without this kind of conversation. And to me, that's why it's so important.